Hello everyone, welcome to MulberryFleece. I'm Lucy and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a bird pod, just like this one. So to get started you're going to need to get a few things ready. Some bubble wrap, that's going to cover your table and save it, and it's also going to help with some traction on the felting. You're going to need a couple of old towels for some spillage. A square of fabric, sort of dress lining, something like that that's not going to stick is good. Wool fleece, very important because synthetic is not going to felt. You can have rubber gloves if you want to, you don't have to. You're going to need old tights, a balloon and some warm soapy water or lukewarm soapy water, and I actually use a bamboo mat as well. So let's get started. We're going to start with the hanging cord, the bit that you're going to attach to the tree. And I'm using some recycled wool here, the type you get in those vegetable boxes that keep it cool. It doesn't have to be that, but it doesn't really have to be very good fleece either, so don't spend lots of money on getting wool tops for this. Just rough old fleece will do. So you're going to start laying it out. And you can make it as long as you want to. I like to twist the ropes up. You don't have to do that. You can have it maybe 1 metre long. I usually do it about 2 metres, and I have it sort of about 4 inches wide. Make sure you're laying your fleece in lots of different directions because that is really going to help it felt together. When you've got it as long as you want it, wet it down with the soapy water. It doesn't really want to be hot at this point, just sort of lukewarm, and give it a good squish to make sure that everything is nice and wet. I'm tucking in the ends here, so starting to make it into a bit of a sausage shape, and then I'm going to roll my bubble wrap over and start to shape it. Very gently at this point. You're just trying to get a bit of shape into it, and if you apply too much pressure at this point you're just going to get a very flat sausage. You can see as the video is going along here that it's getting a bit thinner. That's as it's getting wet and getting more compacted, so do make sure that it is plenty wet and plenty of bubbles on it. Obviously you don't want to be soaking your dining room, but you do need to make sure that all the fibre has wet through. Once you're happy you are getting a bit of shape to it, that's when I bring in the sushi mat. You can use a full-length blind. It actually is easier with a full-length blind because you've got the whole length of it being held in one place at one time. It's important to still be gentle at this point. Don't apply too much pressure. Again, you're still trying to shape it and just starting to get those fibres to migrate into each other at the beginning. Keep rolling and you will see that it's starting to get thinner, but that's good, we want that. And as it does get thinner and firmer, you can start to apply a little bit more pressure. Just make sure though that you do leave the ends free so they're not felted, because you're going to use those to stick it onto the pod later. Next you want to put a dry towel out, or a dryish towel out, and work it with the towel. So you've worked it with your hands a bit, you've worked it with the bubble wrap, and also you've worked it with the mat. Now if you give it a bit of a roll in a dry towel, it will start to soak up some of that extra moisture and really get the hooks in those fibres to grab onto each other and start the felting process properly. So give it a good roll in the towel. This bit's great for bingo wings. Keep you fit. Do keep working it and keep working it. It is all about a bit of muscle power there, and it will take a little time, but you will find it's firming up in your hands. Make sure that that end is still free, and once you have firmed it up a little bit, you can actually just roll it on the top of the towel with your hands. And actually, if you are using rubber gloves at this point, the little knobbly bits on the grippy bits on the rubber gloves are great for helping this as well with the felting. So if you've made a nice long cord, you're now ready to give it a bit of a twist up and turn it into more of a rope, which is what I'm doing here. So twist it round nicely, It's still wet at this point, still soapy, that doesn't matter, we haven't rinsed it at all yet. So twist it round nicely and then back on itself again till you've got the desired rope that you want. Once you've done that and you've made sure that your end is still nice and free, you can just set it aside because we don't need that now until we come to attach it to the pod itself, which is what we're going to go on to next. So here's my already blown up balloon. I'm going to put some bubbles on there. There should be plenty on the table left over from your rolling, just to make it a little bit easier for the fleece to stick on it. And when you blow the balloon up, you're actually going to need it a little bit bigger than you want your final pod to be, because it will shrink. You can see that I'm laying the fleece over the balloon very gently. At this stage you have to be quite gentle with it, otherwise it will just fall off. Start quite finely, overlap all your edges, make sure that the fleece is willy-nilly in all different directions. And as it's starting to stick, you need to wet it a little bit as you go. You'll see me doing that in a minute. But then you can speed up a little bit. What I'm doing now is I'm putting that piece of fabric that I was talking about earlier over the top and wetting through the fabric. And the reason I'm doing that is so that it helps to keep that fleece on the balloon. Otherwise it is quite easy for it to slip off the other side. So wet it down and give it a rub. I'm using an old flannel here just to press the fibres together. So as we did with the cord, we're not giving it too much friction at the moment, we're just compressing it. And then we're going to turn it over and do the other side, and this is where that fabric has really helped us. So make sure you've got more bubbles on there so that the first layer is going to stick, and when you carefully peel down the bit of fabric you should be able to ease those off and stick them down. Make sure also that you're covering the join so that you're not going to get a gap between any bits of fleece. Now it's completely covered and we're going to wet it down thoroughly to make sure all those layers are nice and wet, and I'm going to give it a little squirt of washing up liquid is what I usually use. Give it a little press down and put the piece of fabric back over the top and we can start to work it. So make sure first that it's nice and firm. Again, use the flannel or a piece of bubble wrap will work actually, just a sort of shred of bubble wrap. And get those layers squashed together. Once it's all squashed down, you can start to work it a little bit harder. You can take the fabric off every now and then just to give it a little bit of a test, soap it up with your hands, give it a bounce around on the table, that's going to help. Take off any little bits there. You can see there was a sort of a bit of a seed or something from the grass in there because it is raw fleece. If there are any areas that are coming away a little bit, then back with the fabric and the flannel and squash those down again to make sure that they're really nicely adhering. What I'm doing here is looking for the knot in the balloon. Because of the shape of the balloon, I really want that to be on the top because I want a nice droplet shaped pod. So once I've found it, I'll pop it on the top and then we can start attaching the cord. So the bits that you left free from the cord, you need to wet down nicely with soapy water and put those over the top of the knot in the balloon. Then spread out the extra pieces of fibre across the balloon and really make sure that you squash those down well, make sure that there's soap on there and start adding more fibre. It's really important that you cover this join well, otherwise your stalk's going to fall off and no bird's going to be happy if that happens when they're nesting in it. Nicely soaped and nicely covered with new fleece. Do spend some time over this because it really is worth it, because it is very disheartening if your stalk comes away from your pod before you're finished on your project. Do make sure it's nice and soapy. Give it another squirt of washing up liquid. And when you're happy that it's adhered nicely or it's sitting where it should, then get your cloth back on there, and then you need to start working this area as well. If as you're working it you find any little bits that are coming away, like this bit here, then tuck it under, spread it out, make sure that the fibres have got a good chance of adhering to some other fibres, and then work that area again. Make sure that you give it an extra special rub on it. So I think I'm happy with that. It's rubbed all the way around, smoothed out nicely, so we're now going to have the fight with the tights. What I've got here are an old pair, and I'm going to cut one of the legs off. That first leg I'm going to use to put over the cord itself to secure that. And the reason we're doing this is so that we can make sure that the fibres stay put while we're giving it a really good work. So the first one on, then we're going to put the second one on as well. So double over the cord, so leg goes over there, and then the body part of the tights is going to go over the pod itself. It is a bit of a fight. You do tend to get a little bit wet doing it, but it's worth doing. So here comes the second pair of tights, and I'm just going to cut that last leg off because we just need the body part for this part now. Make sure everything's tucked in nicely, and then just get that last bit over. So once that's all secure and they're all wrapped up, we can start working. So it should be nice and soapy, so you can really just start going on there quite hard now with the flannel, or you can use some bubble wrap or just the piece of fabric that you've been using, anything really that's got a little bit of abrasion to it that's going to give a bit of a workout for the fibre. Pay lots of attention to where the join is, so you can see I'm going over that quite a lot, and as I go it's bubbling up more. That's because it's being compressed more. Bit of bouncing, that never hurts it, but you can see the soap on the surface there, and that's really going to be working into the fibres. That again needs working around the cord to make sure that that's secure. You can see at that point it's not particularly secure, it's quite baggy there, so just keep working that area until you can feel it's firming up in your hands. Once you have worked it really well and you feel it going firm, then you can wrestle the tights off of it and you can start working directly onto the fleece. At this point it's started to felt, so it's adhered together and it's much more robust, so you really can be a bit more violent with it. And you can see I'm using bubble wrap here. Don't forget to keep going over the join with the cord. That's really important to keep that nice and solid. And keep the soap on there, but give it a really good go all the way around. And you can see now from the picture here that it does look like it's firming up a bit. In fact, at this point, it's firm enough to start working with something quite a lot more abrasive. I'm using the mat here. You could do it on a washboard if you had a washboard. Sometimes those mats that you use in the shower are quite good because they're knobbly, so give it a work on something like that, or just rub it on the bubble wrap surface itself or a blind. Once you're happy it's really firm, you can pop the balloon and cut a little slit. It's important to make the observation here that whatever size slit you do cut into it, it is going to increase. So don't go too mad with it, otherwise you'll end up with a hole so big that nothing can actually nest in it. It'd be just like a coconut shell. So once you cut your slit, you can take out the residue of the balloon, and then you need to really work those cut edges. So soap them up again and work them with your hands, work them with bubble wrap if you want to, but really spend some time on them so that they don't fray and that they form quite a firm edge to the opening. Once the opening is all nicely firmed up, you need to really get in there with your hands now and start kneading this the whole pod and giving it a good rub. So you're being more and more forceful with it as you go along. And you can see here that I'm giving it a bit of a bash on the surface and picking up and dropping it, so really squashing it with my hands and giving it a good rub. Do also roll it up in the bubble wrap and give it a bit of a roll in that. Pick it up, throw it around. The bubble wrap will protect it. Give it a really hard bash on your table. And once you've done that, lay it onto a dryish towel and give it a roll up. And you're going to find as you're rolling here, it will be firming a lot under your hands. So you will feel it becoming thicker and thicker and smaller as well. If there are any few bits that have come loose, you can clip those off if you want to, or you can just leave them if you don't mind it looking a bit ethnic. Next, what you need to do is rinse this in very hot and very cold water alternately, and do it 3 or 4 times till all the soap is gone, and then squeeze it out and bring it back to your bench. Now you've got your pod almost finished. You can see here that some of my stalk has come away there, but that's not to worry. I'm going to tie that up in a minute, so it's no disaster. But first of all, I'm going to give it a throw around on a dry towel now. Don't forget there's no soap left in this, so we're just thickening it up and really fulling it and felting it at this point in time. So do give it a good bash around and a good rub with the towel to get a lot of that moisture out before we shape it. So I'm just helping it to get its final shape here. And I'm tying up that loose bit of the cord to make it nice and secure. I probably will put a little stitch in this as well, so I've tied it round. Now all you need to do is shove some dry bubble wrap in it and leave it to dry now in the shape that you want it to be. Or of course you could just hang it on the washing line. There you go, that's it. So I hope you found it fun. This is the finished article hanging in the tree, and hopefully a little bird is going to come along and make a nest in that. Thank you for joining me today at MulberryFleece to do this free workshop. Please do check out the other workshops we have. There's several that are free, and there are also some paid for ones which are a little bit more advanced. Have a lovely day. Bye.